Great. There we are. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Thanks so much for hanging in there. You're listening to the Angel Rock on United Public Radio Network. I'm your host, Lorilei Potvin. Thanks for hanging in there, guys, with live radio. Sometimes things happen. Somehow we got kicked off at Facebook. If you've never been to my show before, welcome. I say that I cover all aspects of the supernatural, anything from UFOs to aliens to the paranormal. I also am a psychic medium, crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, medical intuitive, spiritual teacher and mentor, and I'm also a nurse. And I'm way up in Canada, broadcasting to you from New Orleans. I hope we don't have any feedback there. It sounds like weird sound. I may have to contact Joe. Anyways, the other thing is I have amazing guests from all walks of life who, through the work that they're sharing, make it positive change for humanity. And I apologize. We've had some crazy stuff going on with the internet. That's why we're a little bit late. We got kicked off of Facebook. So I want to remind you, I can see all the chat. If I disappear for a second and turn the comments, but we'll be over on UFO Paranormal Radio on YouTube. Please join us over there because keep an eye on the chat. And as always, for those of you that join me regularly, you know I try and involve you as part of the chat. Now, tonight, this is the first time I'm meeting this beautiful, lovely lady. She reached out to me, and I knew immediately when I looked at her repertoire of work that we were going to connect. I'm going to read a little bit about who she is and her biography. Her name is Constance Briggs. She is a metaphysical, spiritual, cosmic researcher and writer. It's her goal to investigate the mysteries of the universe and how they connect to humanity. She is the author of the Encyclopedia of Angels, which I have. That's what really got me. Encyclopedia of God, the Encyclopedia of the Unseen World, and her newest book, the Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, and all kinds of stuff. Welcome, Constance. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I know. Well, we've been connecting, and you know what? Most people don't realize I actually don't meet a lot of my guests till they come on the air. And that's what I love, because then you totally get to find out all about your guest. And my show is always about my guest. So you're the star of the show tonight. So I've got to ask you, I always start the show this way. So what got you interested in these interesting topics that you've written books on, including the latest?
Right. You know what? It's a ongoing process that's been 30 years in the making. Of what I originally referred to as a spiritual journey. Mm-hmm. Like everybody, I had the age-old questions. Why are we here? All the heavy stuff. What's the meaning of life? What am I going to do with my life? But I can honestly say that I felt some sort of spiritual connection to something. And people used to tell me, oh, you look like you're searching for something. I kind of dabbled in different religions, and so I started on this journey very young and trying to answer some really, serious questions, about life. So, one thing led to the other. I feel that we all have what I call, spirit guides and angels with us. And I really feel that mine have been with me for years, guiding me along and sort of, answering my questions, through this long process. And I started having some what people would call, I guess, paranormal experiences, sorry.
I have had those. Let me tell
you. They started very coming in very strong when I was in my 20s. Mm-hmm. And that was another part of the process, trying to figure out what's going on. I had a problem when I was in my 20s, living, single and working. I had some, strange entity in my apartment, and I had to learn how to get rid of it. At that point, I learned to call on angels. Mm-hmm. And right away, when I up to that point, I had dabbled in religion. I grew up, in religion. but I didn't know outside of the holidays that you could call on angels.
Mm-hmm.
So that was news for me. Learned all of the names of the archangels, started calling on them, and this thing left in a hurry. Never had another problem.
Mm-hmm.
It used to, do things like pull my covers and, just annoy me I live by myself, so it's very scary.
Oh, I can
So
imagine.
anyway, yeah. So one thing led to the next. I went from learning about angels to experiencing being out of the body. Um, that was another lesson for me to understand what was happening. I would slip out of the body. I couldn't do it purposely like some people can. I understand there's people meeting in groups in the astral. That's
Mm-hmm.
not me. I slip out and find myself out there. But over the many years, I finally, I've gotten recently into talking about otherworldly beings. Are we alone in the universe?
Yes.
So one thing led to the other, and here I am talking about life outside of Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Our and all of that, and that's how the Moon Mysteries book came about. So, long answer to a short question.
Not
Sorry.
a long answer, though, because again, not about me, but very quickly, and I've shared it very many times on the show. That is how I found my path of what I'm doing. We lived in a house for 11 years. My partner's been thrown 15 feet. We have been scratched. We have been bit. We have been burned. We have had.
Mm.
Nothing would work, by the way, because the reason why this show is called the Angel Rock is because I work with the archangelic realm. I'm very familiar with them. On top of ascended masters, working in the Akashic records, it seemed like nothing would be able to stop this, nothing. And I don't believe that, because I believe in the power of, say, Archangel Michael or whomever. And for whatever reason, and the way I look at it is, I don't look back in malice on that type of experience, as terrifying as it was. But I learned so many lessons from that, including that I believe that part of my mission is being a light worker, if you will, but shedding that light for people that are going through similar experiences. It's almost like it was part of what I had to go through to learn what
Yes.
path I'm going to be on. And I'm very knowledgeable, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, about many of these negative entities, and I'm able to help other people that way. That's the only way I can explain maybe why, because we get rid of it for a little bit and it would be back with a vengeance.
Right, right. And I feel like they target people who have light missions.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I wouldn't have known that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't see the future.
Mm-hmm.
I consider myself a light worker, starseed wanderer.
Love it.
Uh,
I wish you
and
were on the conversation on the host chat, because Joe was on there. We have a paranormal host chat. Guess what we were
mhm.
discussing tonight? Are psychics real? Are mediums real? We talked about
Oh,
all these topics we're talking about. Joe is very
mhm.
UFO, alien, stuff like that. So, like I said, when you contacted me, I was so excited. The minute I seen your name, I heard, and again, we have guides, we have angels. I heard yes, 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 yes. So, have you? And again, if you're not comfortable discussing, that's okay. But I understand. But have you
Mhm.
had any, say, UFO or abduction or stories, or even experiencing, witnessing something like that, that your interest started there? Because a lot in the paranormal, I have found, they seem to kind of overlap a lot of times, these UFO experiences.
So I've had I've had a number of like I said, the paranormal. You
Mm-hmm.
know, one day, I mean, my dad visiting, lots of things going on. But as far as my mom, but as far as the UFO experience, I have not had an abduction experience.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen what I feel are, oh gosh, in my astral traveling,
Mm-hmm.
I have left and gone to other worlds.
Love it. Right
And
up my alley.
oh my gosh, one of my experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wow, I'll just tell you some of them in the astral. Once I understood it,
Mm-hmm.
I was out there, and one of my first experiences was seeing well, first of all, I'd like to say in the astral, in different worlds, it seems that, they can see you. They can see you. They know you're there. I don't know what form they're seeing,
Right.
but they can see you. And then sometimes it appeared that they couldn't. So in this experience, I was there in front of a young humanoid girl,
Yeah.
and I was looking at her. I was just fascinated because she did have a different appearance in the face, but the rest was humanoid, and she was as real as I was. And I came back, and I told my husband, I said I saw this girl, and she wasn't human, and that was my first experience with dealing with a being or otherworldly being out of the body.
Mhm.
Um, I don't have that very often, but and there was one experience I had. One of my favorites. It was also astral.
Mhm.
Astral. One of my favorites and most interesting is that I was in this place,
Mhm.
and the people understood that I was a visitor
Yeah.
and the astral. And I was helping them. I was trying to help them desperately with the situation that was going on. And they were trying to work with me very quickly because they knew I was leaving.
Okay.
And I didn't want to go, but I knew I had to return, and they knew I had to return, which told me these were humanoids
Mhm.
as well. And it just told me that there are some uh, otherworldly beings that are aware that they can leave their bodies and return.
Mhm.
Whereas here, here on Earth, we're still trying to, convince people
Yeah.
of having a astral body or light body or whatever your whatever terminology you're using. There's so many names for it. We're still trying to convince people, whereas I learned from that experience, they know there are beings that are in, I guess, stasis, that leave and travel and return home.
Yeah.
We're still trying to figure it out. We're still fluttering around trying to know what's going on when we leave our body.
Mhm.
So anyway, recently though, I had another experience, and I've been to this place more than once. When I go, it's dark. It's on a body of water, and it's a large building that is very difficult to explain except a brown castle in the night. And I was there, and there were some beings around me. Something was going on with me. My feeling is they were trying to help in some way, but I don't know what it was. And I can still see them. And they were, one of them was very, very close to me. I mean, she was very clearly there, and the look was so amazing. I was just looking at them thinking their eyes were so big. So they were humanoid, olive skin, dark hair up in a bun.
Okay.
And each of them had on the same shirts, same design shirts, and it had a stripe. But their eyes were huge. Their eyes took up most of their face, and they were green with, the black, eyeballs, and but
Right.
beautiful. And it's sort of a shimmering green. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, now how? And I was looking at their eyes, and I've wanted to get back there. It was three of them. One was moving very fast away from me as if something was wrong. One was trying to help me, but I don't know what it was. I don't know what was going on. And it was all benevolent. And I haven't been back, but I would love to see them again. I've been trying to draw pictures of them and create the image, and I've been going through books of extraterrestrials. I have a number of them, and I can't find them.
We'll
And I
have to
hope to
ask
see them
Joe.
again.
We'll have to ask
Sorry?
Joe. We'll have to ask Joe and see.
Yeah,
Sometimes he's because I don't know how he does what he does. And give him a huge shout out to Joe Montaldo, the owner and producer of all our shows
I
on.
know who he is.
No, because he works a regular job all day long. He
Hmm.
works at a construction company. Then he comes home and he
Hmm.
produces us all night long. He's got his own
Hmm.
shows. Wednesday night
Hmm.
UFO Undercover.
Yeah.
He's a big part of ICAR, International Center for Alien Research.
I've seen him on one of his shows.
Mhm.
Yeah, a
So
couple of times. Yeah.
heard of
I've
him.
seen his show a couple of times.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're familiar. You're familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, everything you have told me, none of this is strange or unusual to me in any way, shape, or form. Whenever I connect with spirit, the only thing and I don't think I've even said this on the show, the only thing I believe, I have had an abduction, I'm pretty sure. But the other thing is when I can channel, I keep hearing the Arcturian Council of Nine. I have no idea why. I usually don't worry too much about name. I don't. I know on the other side they go by energy. They communicate telepathically, no time, no space. On the other side, as you would well know. But so I can usually feel energetically. So I understand the way my guides have explained it, that they will agree to a name for a human being here because that's what we use. Right? That's how we identify people, is by their names. Now, the other thing is that you're right about astral traveling. You can train yourself, I believe, to astral travel. I believe most of us do astral travel at night when we fall asleep, anyways, when we are dreaming. Again, about this race, I believe you. That's where I was going with this. Sorry, my brain was thinking, because I want to give Zach a huge shout out in the chat, and we've got Miss MB here. Hi, welcome. And I try and involve people in the chat always. I hate going to a live, and the chat's not flying by. It's
Mm-hmm.
manageable, and nobody ever checks it, and people usually have great comments. So yeah, with what this whole thing is that's what I was going to say. From my spirit guides, I have always heard the human race is, you're very young, you're learning, where many of these races, benevolent, I believe, exist. I haven't even talked about this on the air yet, so it's going to be the first time. um I don't normally follow somebody by the name of Robert David Steele. He's not involved with the UFO community. I think my guides must have wanted me to see this. And there was this series. I've only gone to the second video, was not channeled. And it was talking about benevolent races. It was talking about a galactic federation. Probably Joe's rolling his eyes right now. And it was talking about why these benevolent races don't come down here and intercede. And it made so much sense. And it talked about the benevolent races versus there are some very nefarious races out there as well. There's a lot more going on. And the one thing that was really comforting that I did hear, and I'd love to see if you ever heard this before, they had said that the only way they might intercede is, say we had a nuclear war and we were going to blow up the planet. That is when they would intercede, because it would have an effect on all this whole galaxy, basically.
It would have a domino effect. It would have a domino effect.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, please continue.
No, that's all I was basically going to say. So everything you've said, like, this is right up my alley. I love talking about these things. And
yeah,
go ahead.
no, I was going to say that. So the whole UFO increase that we saw happening in the 1950s, a lot. I mean, Earth has always been visited. I've been looking at, pictures from medieval times. We've seen them in, ancient, carving.
Egypt.
Oh yeah, they're all over. But in the 1950s, there seems to have been an influx that started really getting people's attention. And so the story is that the occupants, of some of those craft actually did make a contact, and they said we are not going to let you blow up all of the life here. You can't do it. And this is what was told through a channeling session. That's why they had come in. They have been also known to. There have been some tests of missiles and things that have sort of gone through.
Yeah.
and they said they're not going to let that happen, and that it would have a domino effect throughout the galaxy. Yes. And so they're here for that reason, some of them, which I find, of course, right along the lines of what you said. Um, and so they also said, from looking at us for that reason, they don't think that we're necessarily ready to move, to grow into that community.
No, I have to agree with you. And I believe that they are light years ahead of us. There was something I was going to say that they had brought up. Sorry, my brain is not working tonight. With that video, that really struck me as odd. There was one race, that's what it was. There apparently, now it was a bit confusing to kind of figure out who all these players were. And it was like an audio recording. But there is one race apparently that's very close to the earth that don't agree without interceding. And I hope I can explain this without sounding too woo woo, as we use that word in the light worker world really
Well,
often.
what's wrong with that?
Oh, I meant even for our audience out there. So what it was they explained that this race, now I can't remember the name of them, but the
Hmm.
reason why they said that the other races don't intercede is because Earth is, and I believe it is, one of the most hardest places to reincarnate to.
Hmm.
Because we go on forever, and I believe that we do. That coming to Earth, the actual lifespan is what, maybe 80 years, they said, if not sooner. And they were likening it akin to a small child, say a 1 year old, and the parent says, baby, don't put your hand on in the candle or on the
Hmm.
element, and the baby touches it, doesn't listen, and burns itself. Now the baby pulls its hand away, the baby doesn't get hurt, but it's learned what hot means, not to touch the element. So what they were saying was that Earth is basically a place where people choose to come, and they come here because it's one of the best places to learn life lessons or grow the knowledge within our soul. I know this will make sense to you, but they said the reason they don't intercede is we've chosen to come here. We knew we were coming in with spiritual amnesia, meaning we don't remember our previous lives. And again, for you, I know you know, I meant for our listeners.
Hmm.
So it's relatively a blip in the whole series of time, which doesn't
That's
exist.
right.
So the other
That's
part
right.
that they added was because it's just a blip, and they really talked about that this is a manifestation planet, that we whatever we experience is what we create. And I believe that, I really do too. So it made a lot of sense to me why they didn't intercede. And then I could almost hear this other race saying, well, the human race is still suffering, whether or not it's a place they chose to come, whether it's just a blip on the infinity of time, and feeling like they need to intercede. And then they got into star seeds. Like, this thing was really complicated, but it was really interesting to listen to. Have you heard any of this stuff at all?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. The fact that okay, on the other side, let me just back up. On the other side,
Mhm.
when we are planning our life here, our
Yeah.
life doesn't start when we're born. Our life, we really are someone else. We really have two
Yes.
bodies. We
Yes.
have the physical body.
Yes.
We're on earth in this body because this is what we need to exist here.
Yes.
All right. We choose to come here. And it's my understanding that there are some who will not come in. They
Mhm.
will not come in because this planet is said to be too dark.
True.
It's too tough a lesson for some of them. You have the choice.
Mhm.
And there are, they said there's just no way they're going to come down here for those lessons.
Mhm.
Where we come from is a world where we exist, we live, we learn, we have a social life. It is a much better place. We are very highly spiritual, powerful beings. So we really lower ourselves to come
Yeah.
in here and learn these very painful, sometimes very painful lessons.
Yes.
Um, so it's interesting, yeah, that you said it is a dark planet to some, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm. They were that you just clarified exactly the part I missed. And this is part of the reason why these benevolent races too won't come, because we're not really our true self. we're that in that 3D existence, we're not the expression of who we truly are, whether it's 5D or higher, meaning, exactly what you said, we are powerful, everlasting beings. But again, we choose this. So you're right. It's a matter of lowering ourselves, or the energy is quite dark and low here, but there's a reason for it. And this is where most the growth can happen for our souls here. I believe that for a long time. Now, we're kind of getting away from your book, though, because we're talking about the moon. But before we hold that thought, because we've got
Yes.
Mr. B in the chat says hi. Chasing the Truth, Sean G. He's one of our
Hello.
hosts, says, hey, folks.
Hi.
And Angel Q Dog says, I am a starseed. Welcome, guys. If you've got questions, we're going to get to Constance's book. She's got all kinds of amazing books and knowledge. I knew this was going to be such an interesting discussion. So now with the book, so what did you have to do for research? Like, I'm fascinated because I actually read some of the bits in Amazon. It's got fantastic reviews, but you covered quite a bit, and I'd love for you, if you're comfortable, sharing some of that, or who you spoke to, or how you got your research done.
So this book came out of nowhere, and it was a surprise for me. I did not grow up with, in any way, shape, or form, being interested in astronauts. Mm-hmm. And I remember being very, very, when I was young, just being bored at the subject of anything having to do with the moon and astronauts and shuttles and rockets. And this book is full of that stuff, right? Doing the research that I did on the Unseen World book, which was my paranormal book, and the Angel book, there's, you get a lot of information and odd stories coming across the desk. Now, coming from I have to preface this with, I am a Trekkie, Star Trek person.
Oh, love it. Grew up on
it. I'm there. You run it, I'm there. But I didn't need convincing that there were beings from outer space or being from other worlds around. I just knew. So I walked around all the time with this, information, thinking, we're being visited. This is not something I need to, I don't even need to follow ufology, because I already know. You don't have to convince me, right? Yeah. So these stories start going through my desk. What I didn't know is that there was so much going on with the moon. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When this started a few years ago, I thought, okay, yeah, so yeah, there's spaceships, maybe they're near the moon, whatever. But in this case, I started learning about moon anomalies. I had stumbled. I say stumbled, but there really are, I guess, no coincidences. I came across a book titled "Our Mysterious Spaceship Moon." It was written in the 1970s by Don Wilson, whom I can't find. I've looked everywhere for, and he talked a lot about anomalies that NASA astronauts had come across, and I was stunned that I was just so out of the loop on this information. And I remember thinking, what else is going on that I don't know? Mm-hmm. But so from there, I just started, being a writer, I just started saying, oh, this is interesting. I collected stories. Mm-hmm. But I thought people knew. I thought more people knew than not. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to put the stories in a little book, because I had written 3 other encyclopedias. Mm-hmm. I like to write books. That's changing, and that's another story. But I have in the past liked to write these books, hoping that I can get lots of information into people that might be interested, and they could take these little articles in these books and they use it as a jump off for their research. So I wanted people to be aware that there were moon anomalies going on, and that we should put some effort into learning about them and not just keep them in these files from the 60s, at NASA. Mm-hmm. Okay, so a lot of my information came from actually the NASA files. It came from me, contacting, I talked to a few astronomers who had, seen things out there. I was in libraries doing research into ancient myths, and it just came from all different directions, the research. But some of the stories are fascinating. For example, now you might know it, and Joe, I'm sure, knows that about the transient lunar phenomena going on in the moon. Now, this is kind of old news, but because uh, a lot of people weren't born then,
Right.
or people weren't interested then, or they don't even think about going into files because they don't think about the moon. They don't know that there's a lot of activity up there in the form of lights and movement. And we call that transient lunar phenomena. There was so much of this that NASA uh, published, a couple of catalogs about them. One of the last one, I hear that there has been some regret on their behalf on putting that out there and declassifying this information. So, to start with, we have lights on the moon moving around in different colors, different geometric shapes across the surface of the moon or over the moon during lunar eclipse. Some are witnessed for 15 minutes and some several hours. They're on the surface, they're in the craters, and it just looks like there's just a city of lights up there. Like it looks like someone's going about their business, turning lights on and off up there.
Yeah.
It looks like someone is traveling, and instead of cars, maybe they've got some sort of saucers getting them from one point to the other. I mean, that's how prevalent they are. There were some astronomers in the past who said they saw one likened it to insects. It was like this moving cloud of. I guess we could liken it to birds moving in a flock. He said, I don't know what that is. The astronauts went up and they saw something that they nicknamed moon pigeons flying up from the surface of the moon. They couldn't understand what that was. It's so interesting. And we do not know what they are. And I've been reading tidbits of the news here and there, and they're trying to figure them out, and they don't have any answers. And nobody wants to say, hey, look, there's someone on the moon. They just refuse, to say there must be someone up there. So on top of the lights, we've got ruins that were found. We, a lot of people know about those from the 70s. It was a huge deal. They're still there. They didn't go away. They seem to have fallen, I feel like, sometimes out of the news, but they're still there. Where did they come from? We never got an answer. What are they? We never got an answer. And even more recently, there are some modern day astronomers looking at Google Earth, and they are swearing that what they're seeing are cities. And I've looked at them. They look like cities to me. You can see, what looks like objects sitting, in your craters. It's very, very interesting. So in my opinion, I believe there's someone on the moon. Now, there was a very famous book that came out, and someone did do a book titled "Somebody Else is on the Moon." It was years ago. It's kind of falling out of popularity, and again, people have are not thinking about it. But we need to think about this because this information may have everything to do about who we are and where we came from and how we started. There is somebody on the moon that may have an extraterrestrial galactic connection to us. We hear about the stories of the Sumerian creation in the Anunnaki.
Yep.
There's some rumor that maybe the moon is connected to them. Could they have been on the moon? Could the slave race that they created have come from the moon? And are they still there? When I've seen a video of ships looking like they're coming, of what looks like ships, they're UFOs, coming out of craters. Where are they going?
Absolutely.
We're seeing all of these UFOs here, or UAPs here. Where are they coming from? Could they be coming from the moon? And we've got several different kinds. We've got the cylinder-shaped ones. We've got the triangle ones. We've got the
Mm-hmm.
tic tacs. I
Yep.
mean, where are they coming from? Are they coming from the moon? Um, Another thing that I talk a lot about is the origin of the moon or lack thereof, our not
I
knowing.
read that, and
My God.
I didn't mean to interject. There's just two
It's
things,
okay.
but about the moon, I had heard that we didn't possibly have a moon before. So let's go there with that. But I've been dying to share this with you. I Have you heard of Augie Nost before?
I know Augie. Yes,
Okay, so have you
I've been on
seen
his show a few times.
Okay, Augie's a good friend of mine, really good friend. We were in the same network years ago. He's going to be on actually next Monday he's going to be on. And have you seen his videos him and Nori have done about strange
Uh,
things on the moon?
yeah,
Uh,
so actually, one of them, I have a Moon Mysteries page on Facebook, and every now and then I run that video. I
and he's
just
got
love
the
it.
Mars one, the Moon one, and then Strange Things on Earth. What blew my mind, but I think there was one similar on the Moon, but there's one on Mars too, where it looks something very humanoid and has no spacesuit, no nothing. Just you can
Right,
pick up a human being, right?
right,
How'd that
absolutely,
happen?
right, right. Well, maybe we're not being told everything too. You know, I mean,
Oh, I think we're
I can just go there. I mean, so okay, backing up a little bit to the origin of the moon.
you have a question
We
too, so don't let me forget after you share this, please. Thank
Okay, so we do not know how where the moon came from.
you. I agree.
Uh, so first of all, if you go all the way back to the ancient history,
Mhm.
there are writings that talk about a time in Earth's history where there was no moon in the sky.
Exactly.
Um, there were several Greek philosophers that mentioned this time, and one of them, by the name of Ovid, went into great detail about it.
Hmm.
He talked about the name of the people. They were called the Arcadians.
Hmm.
And he said that these people existed in the land before
Hmm.
the worship of Jupiter, which
Hmm.
is, very far, goes very far back, of course.
Right?
They were wild people. He says that they didn't, use horses. They didn't wear clothes. They just drank from their hands. They carried all their burdens, just living in the wild, uncultured. They didn't know agriculture. They didn't know anything. And that was the time before the moon. And if you're going to imagine a time before the moon, that's how, and there was life, that's how you would imagine life to have been. People just didn't know anything back then. They were wild, like the animals. For whatever reason,
Hmm.
oh, by the way, this story is also found in some cultures, and also not just the Greek philosophers, a couple of Roman uh, writers mentioned it, and there were some stories in different cultures, and also the Bible
Hmm.
mentions there are two scriptures that talks about a time without a moon. I don't know how they can connect that with the Genesis story. I don't understand that, but I swear they're there. But so as we move forward, and there's also a artifact, a ruin in Bolivia,
Hmm.
the Sun Gate of Tianaco,
Hmm.
has symbols on it that talks about a time that there was no moon in the sky, and that it says that the moon came in. The moon came in. And I don't believe that. Of course, the ancients were misleading us in any way. This gate or archway with all of these symbols and writings that were eventually deciphered was, they believe, a part of a planetarium situation. And there is some thought, of course, because where else would they have gotten the information? There was some thought that the extraterrestrials may have given these people the information that there was no moon in the sky and had them to write it down so that we would have that information today and that it came in. So we have all of this evidence from our ancient past
Right.
that there was a time without a moon and that the moon, came in.
I
Did
I
you want
have
to?
Okay.
Did you want to ask your
I
question
just
before I go on? Because
have
it's
one
a
question.
long story.
I have one question of my own, and then we do have a good question. It's more of a statement. So if we didn't have a moon, right? Think about it. We're like, especially being a nurse working nights, like we knew when there was a full moon, you didn't have to ask, especially with people with dementia, things like that. But we're mostly made up of water. The moon affects the tide. So I wonder what happened with the oceans and things like that. Did we ever have the tide coming in, coming out? Like what happened to the bodies of water here? I wonder.
Yeah, they would have. I don't know. I mean,
I
I'm not a scientist, but
It just struck my mind. But the question we have actually is from
mm,
Sean from Chasing the Truth. And he says, what does Victoria think about John Lear's theory the moon is a soul collector?
I don't believe the moon is a soul collector.
Fair?
And I also don't like to. Uh, I don't like to talk against what people believe and what they say, but I just don't. I don't think the moon is a soul collector. And the reason, I mean, I thought about. I've been asked this question before.
Mhm.
Having been out of, studied the other side and been out of the body
Mhm.
and traveled.
Yes.
Um, I don't believe that we are stuck here in a
I,
trap. The idea is that we can't get out. We
mhm.
can't get out of Earth or past the moon. No, we can't get past the moon because and then we're being pushed back here.
Mhm.
But we have the tales of ancient tales up to today. People saying that yeah, we do cross over. People have talked to their relatives on the other
Oh,
side. They
absolutely.
have manifested. My father came through. I have a girlfriend who was a teacher who was working at school one evening. Her dad had passed, and she was grieving and crying. And he just manifested in front of her and said, "Vicky, you don't have to. You don't have to cry. You don't
Mhm.
have to be this sad. I'm happy. I'm fine where I am." I don't believe that he just popped in from being stuck somewhere in a horrible place
Mhm.
to tell her I'm really wonderful. There would have been no need. So from my own experiences with dealing with life after death
Mhm.
and the other side and the astral, I believe that we do move on and we're not stuck.
I
Also,
agree. I agree.
there have been people who have had near death
You're reading my
experiences.
mind. I was just going to say it. I've studied NDEs for 40 years, professionally as well as personally, and I believe I had one as a toddler. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, people have seen, I mean, they've gone out into the universe and they said they were looking back at the earth,
Mhm.
and then they were brought back. They didn't say anything about feeling like they couldn't get through some sort of, trap.
I agree.
So that's just my opinion.
Oh,
But everyone's entitled to their opinion, right?
everyone's entitled, but again, and everybody has unique experiences with astral travel, near death experiences. Now, those can be the same, but not quite. I've talked to many people. I've had people that have had cardiac arrests on the floor and have been resuscitated. And with working nights, not that you had time, we used to have to even mix our own IV bags, everything on the floor, but you made the time. I always say I became a nurse, not because to go mix medications and all the technical stuff, which I
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed. It's because
Mm-hmm.
I love people. So I have talked to people who were clinically dead and it's like 30-35 minutes, and then you'll hear skeptics saying, well, the hearing's the last to go, blah blah blah. Well, the things these people could tell you, there is no way they would know if they heard it. No way. They had no medical knowledge. They didn't know who these people were. Some of them were even up over top the next couple floors above, like that never left the floor. In their corporeal body, if you will. They knew the names of medical things. They could tell you, describe visually what was going on the cardiac monitor. There was so many things that there's no way. We just had this conversation in the paranormal host chat because Joe believes that he was saying that he didn't believe, and I was trying to explain to him, no, we're not trapped here, because he thinks that if you come back to visit your loved ones, you must be trapped here and you'd be really miserable and you're not able to let go. I just thought that no, it's I not judging his belief system, but it was too long to try and explain. You've done it beautifully, very quickly. Astral travel stuff. I have to read
Yeah,
further.
I wrote the Encyclopedia of the Unseen World, and I had to talk to people and get their experiences, and it was a very interesting time and very enlightening. Yeah.
She says, "Did you have?" Or Sean's also added, "Did you have memories of others that shared their life with you while on the other side?" I'm not very.
No,
Yeah, yeah, I don't think so,
no,
right? Because we're not.
no.
You're not talking about having had. I think Sean joined us just a few minutes later after we had started.
Mm.
Not talking about personally experiencing a near-death experience. You're talking about astral travel. That you're.
Yeah, that was mine, and yeah, my I didn't have a near death experience. Uh, anyone can do it, and most people, I think all people do it, but they're not aware that they
Mhm.
come out of their body at
Oh,
night.
the time. Mhm.
And my first experience, where I call it having a conscious out of body experience, I went to bed, I was living single.
Mhm.
I went to bed in my apartment and I woke up in the sky, and I tell these stories. You're talking about sounding woo woo. Well, here I go. So I woke up.
We're gonna have a show like that tonight.
Right, right. I woke up and I wasn't in my bed, and I was in the sky. Now, fortunately for me, I wasn't in shock because I had stumbled across a book, Out Journeys Out of the Body, written by Robert Monroe all those years ago of the Monroe Institute.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if that was a trigger even for me, if my astral self, or unconsciously said, okay, you can do that. And there I was. So I felt like I was there. There seemed to be a light around me, and I sort of floated forward like one of those. I liken it to one of the bobbins when you're fishing, going up and down in the ocean, a little ball. I felt like I was going up, just going up and down, and then I floated forward, and I caught myself.
Mhm.
Because if you feel like you're going to fall, then you catch yourself. I caught myself, and I came back up, and I was bobbing up and down. And I said, "Oh, I know what this is." And from there, I traveled, and I ended up in a place, and I can remember this to this day. It was many years ago. I ended up in a building, and I came through a wall,
Mhm.
and it was a different dimension because it had an animal that I had never seen before, and it could fly. So I'm moving past these rooms, and I'm looking in, and I see this thing. It kind of looks like a cat. It was white. I didn't see legs. I just saw the end was fluffy, and it looked like a cat's head. And it saw me. Now I don't know what it saw. I don't know what form. Someone in the astral looks like to something in a different dimension. But I turned around and hauled it. I'm going back down this hall, and this thing is chasing me. And I remember thinking, what did the book say? The book said something about if you want to go home, it says say home, home. And I'm yelling in my head, home, home, home.
Yeah.
And I woke up in my bed. And when I woke up, I had to get up and go to work the next morning. I knew what had happened, and I just thought, God, did I die in my sleep? I knew I was out of the body, but my heart didn't stop. But what can you do when you have that kind of an experience for the first time? You're out of the body and you're conscious of it. All I could do is get dressed and go to work. But most people, when they come out of their body during sleep, they come back and they think they had a dream. They've
Yes.
gone around the neighborhood and they
Yeah.
think that they had a dream. I'm here to tell you that you're traveling. We're not our body, our astral body is not tied forever to the physical body. You can come out and you can move around. So
I believe we. Now, again, I think this is just in theory, but I believe, and I've heard it many times. I'm positive you've heard of it, of the silver cord. That
the silver
I.
cord.
Yeah, because I have had people explain. Augie himself explained first couple times that he did astral travel consciously, and he ended up, I forget what stopped it. Somebody interrupted him or something, but it startled him, and he said he snapped right back into the body like he didn't plan it. He said it was actually kind of painful because it was like getting snapped like your whole body with an elastic band. And then again, this is going to sound strange, but working as a medium, and even as palliative care quite a bit, it's like when the soul leaves the body. And I'm writing a book right now, actually collecting mostly nurses' stories, but also first responders. But what it is the miraculous, incredible things that we experience at the end of life as we're sitting with our fellow human beings and they transition from this lifetime, as I call it, back home. Sometimes you will witness things, you will see things. I believe there was a study back even in the early 1900s with this doctor. You probably heard Augie talk about this, and he had an industrial scale underneath their beds, and death was imminent. And I mean, we've got physical signs, obviously, you're going to see when death is imminent. And so they were weighed and right up it. And then the minute they died, I believe there was about a point like 30 cc's or 30 ounces. It was very, very minimal. There was a change in the body weight as the person's heart stopped beating.
That's right.
What was that?
That's
It was
right.
the body.
Yeah. I wrote about that a little in my my Unseen World book, and it was so many years ago I can't even quote myself. But yes, yeah,
that's so much to talk about, Constance. I'm going to have you back on here because there's just so many things to talk about. But I don't want to get away from your book, and I know we can go in so many directions. So you were starting with the story about the moon. It looks like there's a city on there. Like, what else did you find out, especially the astronaut missions and stuff?
Okay, so wow, there was something I wanted to say. I guess I'll wait until the next show. It was I had this kind of an interesting story along the lines of what Augie had said. If I can tell it, and then I'll go back to the moon.
You do.
We're all over the place. I know. Sorry, audience. So I just wanted to say very quickly, talking about being snapped back into the body with the silver cord, and I have looked for the silver cord, but I haven't seen it yet. I know it's there somewhere, and I don't spend a lot of time when I'm out of my body, checking for it. I don't remember, but I haven't seen it, but I do believe it's there. So I saw a UFO, I saw a ship. It wasn't a UFO. I had my baby, and sometimes moms, will take a nap when the baby does. And I had gone to sleep during the day, and I was out of my body, and I was traveling. I was in the sky, and there was this glorious, beautiful ship. It wasn't any like the silver saucers that you see. This thing was like a cross between a copper and a bronze. And it was beautiful, and it was enormous, and I was very, very close to it. And I was excited because I was moving slowly, and I was heading towards it, and I figured I would just go right through the walls because that's what I had done, previously in buildings, right? But I was thinking that I hope my phone doesn't ring because I will be pulled back in to the body. And darn it, if that didn't happen, the phone rang and I was pulled back in, and it was my husband. And I tell you, I was never able to get back to that, and I wish I could have. And maybe I did, and I don't remember it, because sometimes, we'll have an experience and then we'll wake up and we don't necessarily remember it. It's my understanding that there are people going off planet at night to starships, and interacting. So and don't necessarily remember. Some people do and some don't. If that's happening to me, I don't remember it. But that was an amazing experience, and I tell you, that was a very beautiful ship. So anyway, so where were we? We were talking about the time when there was no moon in the sky, the sun gate of Chinako, and we had moved forward. Okay, so we've moved forward, and we're saying basically that the moon came in, but we don't know where it came from. Today, scientists, they don't want to readily admit that they don't know the origin of the moon. They've come up with a lot of theories, and some of the most interesting ones we've had the fission theory, we've had the, I call it the double whack theory, the big whack theory, which is the giant impact theory, the capture theory. Most people, I think the two most popular ones, I'll talk about that. People think that the scientists thought that maybe the moon was an asteroid that was caught in Earth's gravity and pulled, and became stuck to Earth and is here. But they disregarded that theory and said, it doesn't work. The moon's too big. The mass is too big of the moon. And then there was another more popular one, which was the giant impact theory, and that was the idea that the moon was hit by a planet the size of Mars. They named this planet Theia, and that this planet had smacked into Earth, and that pieces of Earth flew off, out into space and formed this sphere that eventually became our moon. That has been discounted because when the astronauts went up, they brought back all of this material and from the moon, and the materials don't match their timeline. So they don't know where it came from, and I still hear out there, sometimes in the schools that they're saying it was the giant impact theory, but it really wasn't. And if you go on NASA's website, they say that we think maybe that is it. That's the way. But that's, not definitive.
But, okay, so did you ever, and again, I always ask strange questions, just going through, I write them down while you were talking so I wouldn't forget. Is there any chance that maybe it was always there, but something or someone, if you will, like almost flicked the switch on or lit it up? You know what I mean?
Well, I guess that's a possibility. That is absolutely something I have not thought about, that it was always there and someone flipped the switch. But remember, the moon gets its light from the sun. So the sun has always been there. So I'm going to say that if the moon were there, it would have been hit.
That's the one thing that went through my head, that somebody would have at least seen the silhouette or the shadow. It was just something that went through my brain, and I thought I'll throw it out there and see if you heard it. Angel Q Dog says, I heard the theory that the moon was transported there by a large ship that towed it into place.
Okay, so one of the theories, I was going to read a quote, but I don't think so.
Go ahead. I'm
No. I think that
you can tell me I practice ahead of time, guys. This is all off the cuff here.
It's just one of my favorite quotes, and I use it on every show I do. So the American author and prolific writer, he was a professor of biochemistry. He knew all about this stuff. His name was Isaac Asimov. Right. So, but for people who don't, he had, one of my favorite quotes came from him about what the moon is. Basically, he says, "What in blazes is our moon doing way out there? It's too far out to be a true satellite of Earth. It's too big to have been captured by the Earth. The chances of such a capture having been effected, and the moon then having taken up a nearly circular orbit about the Earth, are too small to make such an eventuality credible. But then, if the moon is neither a true satellite of the Earth nor a captured one, what is it?" So, with that said, to answer your question, I love that quote. Two Soviet scientists in the 1970s believed that they found the answer to what it is. They proposed that the moon is a spaceship. Now, some have said that it's a spaceship that have been towed here, that maybe the spaceship came in on the tail of a comet. It was sent across the universe on the tail of a comet, or was it navigated here? This is my favorite theory about the origin of the moon. I like to think that it's a spaceship. It sounds really cool.
It makes the most sense, though, from what you shared. We have quite a few questions, like the one I read you. These are all coming from the chat. So carry on. Go ahead.
So, okay, I'll try to get through this part. I'm looking at the time. Okay, really fast. I know, right? No, we've got 45 minutes. But so basically, they said that they looked at all of the evidence of the moon collected from the NASA astronauts. And yes, I know there are people out there who think we didn't go, but I do. So I share this information. When you look at the craters of the moon, they're shallow and they're pretty much the same depth. If you have meteorites hitting the moon at different, weights, they should be deeper, right? Some of them, but they're all the same. The same, pretty much 2.5 miles deep. Also, when they studied the materials, they found a lot of elements that the moon is made up of, and they're saying these are very harsh materials, that if you were going to build something that to be strong, that you would have used the elements like titanium and zirconium. I kind of, butcher these words. I'm sorry. And a few others. They said these elements together could withstand radiation and all, and heat and being hit by meteorites and not have any problem. And then they also looked at the fact that the moon reverberated. We've all heard that the moon rang like a bell. Well, it didn't really make it sound like a bell. It didn't sound like a bell, but it did reverberate when the NASA astronauts the first time sent their ascent stage crashing into the moon. And, some people have said, people made that up. It didn't ring like a bell. Yes, it reverberated. It shook. And at the press conference at the time, the scientists and NASA officials were shocked. They didn't know what to make of it. And they've done this. They did it more than once, and they had the same result. The moon shook, which told them that, gosh, it's got to be, hollow. It might be hollow inside, but no, it can't be hollow. I mean, why would it, natural satellite, Anyway, so the Soviets said they think that this thing is a spaceship that was sent across the universe, and it has probably all the materials in it for living during a long travel, engines and, all the materials needed for people to survive. That is their theory, and that's where the spaceship moon theory came from, and it took off.
It makes a lot of sense. You're actually answering a lot of the questions. I'll just back up a bit. So, like Sean G said, I've had a few folks, he was mentioning, if we back up about NDEs, he said that I did CPR on in the hospital that came back with quite the stories. Then Angel Q Dog said, I heard the theory it was transported there by a large ship that towed it into place. Sean G asked, is it hollow? He said, I heard a few stories that it rang like a bell. You're reading you're reading their minds in the questions. And then Chasing the Truth, Sean again said, upon landing a craft, and then he said almost like an observation platform. And Angel Q Dog said, that works for me. I like that. It is its own spaceship.
Well, thank you for those questions. I'm so glad to get support. Sometimes people just say, oh my God, oh come on.
That's to me.
I've had people say, oh, I stopped listening when she mentioned NASA astronauts. We never went to the moon. So I've had, you never know what you're going to get.
We need to be open-minded because we don't know everything. And you know what? That's what I always say. So unless it was absolutely heck, I don't even know anything somebody could tell me that would be crazy as a guest on here. I mean, if somebody said the moon was made of cheese, like they used to say, how many decades ago, I might have thought, based on what?
Yeah.
But I'd still be open to hearing it.
Well, I do want to share an ancient tale from the Zulu people. The Zulu tribe of South Africa had their creation stories, like, so many cultures do. And they were explaining, in one of their traditions, they explained how the moon got here.
Love it.
They said they likened the moon to an egg.
Okay.
They said the moon is a big egg.
Okay.
And this egg was opened, and the yolk was taken out by these two individuals who were brothers, and they had stolen it. And they took the yolk out, and then they sent this gigantic egg across the universe and placed it in Earth's vicinity, and that's how it came to be. Now, that sounds a lot like what the Soviet scientists said. That it sounds a lot like the scientists basically were saying that they thought some sort of planetoid that had been hollowed out. Okay. So to me, it's the same story. And, there are legends where we learn that Native American people say it. The Dogon tribe have said that they were given information from extraterrestrial beings. A lot of cultures say they were visited by otherworldly people and given information about the universe. Could the Zulu people have gotten some information from otherworldly beings to tell them how this thing, came into be where it is? So I'm working on a new book, and I'm looking at some hypotheticals and how and who that might have been. The questions are there beings really living in a hollow moon? Are the lights that we're seeing coming from beings inside of the moon?
Love it.
Are they? If so, who are they? And are they connected to us? And have they been there all the time? Or were there beings that came in who somehow died off, and then the moon was inhabited by otherworldly beings who, saw this empty planetoid? Now, what's also interesting is that they have found what they're saying are ruins on the moon. I read that this at some point that maybe their beings did have something going on up there on the moon, and then eventually they had to come inside for whatever reason, due to a war, due to something in radiation or whatever. I mean, they may have been both up on top and in the bottom, because they do have ruins there. Also, if this is a spaceship that was sent across the universe, could it have been a Noah's Ark situation?
Oh my God, you're reading my mind. I just wrote that down. I swear to God, I was going to ask you that, because I was thinking that. I'm going, this sounds like dark.
Like Noah's Ark.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh.
Could they have been escaping some planetary destruction, a sun gone over, or who knows what, and could they have supplied it enough where it took thousands of light years to get here? Could it be a generational ship where there have been people living on this thing for ages, and then they park themselves here? You're a Trekkie. Do you remember that episode? Because it took me this theory took me back to Star Trek, the one from the 60s with Shatner.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There was a episode where they had to investigate an asteroid that was heading towards one of the civilizations that the Federation, that was part of the Federation. And they are following this thing, and eventually they learn that this asteroid really is a ship. There are people living in this ship, and they don't know that they're on a ship. And they don't go to only the higher council people go to the top of this thing. The rest have to stay inside. And there is a man in this episode where he's telling Shatner, I one time I got to the top. I went to the top and I could see the sky. And he says, you know, he says how the world is hollow and I have touched the sky. And he died.
I've heard that. Yes.
And
Yeah.
I know, right? It was amazing. It was
Yeah.
amazing. But it does remind me, of course, it's almost identical to the spaceship moon theory. If there is a generational, it could be a generational ship with people in it. And once it reached Earth's vicinity, did some of those humanoids, if they were humanoids, and come out, and were they placed here? Have they blended in?
I agree.
Some people say that the moon looks like it's watching. It's
It
like
does.
a, could they be watching because they have people here?
Hmm.
Could they be watching the progress of their own people? Who knows? Now, getting off on that subject,
Hmm.
could the other theory that the moon was brought in here is because it did see that the Earth was in trouble. They could have been advanced beings that saw that this planet had a potential for growth and stability. And
Hmm.
if they put the moon here and stabilized it, the world would turn into a beautiful place. And I call it the Garden of Eden theory.
Yeah.
Could they have put it there to help Earth to thrive and to balance the tides and stabilize the Earth?
Hmm.
And that's why they're watching to see our progress, to see what happened if they're there. I mean, these are all theories, but
It could be. I mean, I'm thinking of even that Disney movie Wall-E, where they've got that little automated, robot going around. He finds the plant, but where are all the human beings, right, on this ship? I think they know that Earth still exists, but they're told they can't breathe. But where I'm going with this is, yeah, what if there are people on this ship? Because I truly believe that a lot of the TV that's out there is predictive programming, that either they're telling you of something that may come to be, may have been, maybe a slight little version of the truth. Not every single thing on TV, but things that are very akin to what's on Earth here. We look at the X Files. I mean, we look at Star Trek. Like, did we end up getting cell phones that we can hold in our hands because of the communicator devices that they have? Sorry, my brain is not working tonight. You know what I mean? Like, sort of like what came first, the chicken and the egg. Then I get into the Terminator with Skynet. There is a company named Skynet that I have seen that makes the same type of material that they made in the movie The Terminator. So what I'm saying is you start thinking about all these things, right? Like, did they really exist? I've had the theory, like, did Gene Roddenberry actually, did he channel what he got? Or was he visited
uh,
by the race? Hmm.
so I have a interesting Gene Roddenberry story for you.
Love it.
I do want to comment, but so remind me because I lose my train of thought too. There's just so much.
I
I
know.
Okay, so first of all, along the lines of what you said
Hmm.
of television, I do believe that otherworldly beings who are trying to help us to prepare for what they call first contact and to help us prepare to move into what I really think is a universal community. I think that they do use the media to influence us.
Right.
I think yeah, a lot of what we see and a lot of the stories are there for our benefit, but people don't know it. So with Gene Roddenberry, oh my God. Okay, this is going to sound woo woo.
Okay.
I told you that in my life of my path, I've taken like these steps, and one of the steps I think that my guides help me with because they sometimes I can kind of, I don't want to say hear them, but it's more like thoughts,
Hmm. Yep.
And so anyway, this was Gene Roddenberry. Gene Roddenberry. This was the time that I was learning about, really understanding extraterrestrials and questioning, what am I really from here even? These thoughts were in my head, but I kept getting Gene Roddenberry, Gene Roddenberry. And I do that sometimes with warnings. I've been warned about
Yep.
things, like one time I was told, open, check the door, check the door, check the door. I checked the door, one of the toddlers in the house was out and down the street. So this time, I was getting Gene right. And so I said, okay. I don't understand. I'm going to look up Gene Roddenberry. And so, like so many times when they've given me messages, I started digging. I tell you, the only thing I could find, I finally hit it, was a book called, oof, it's slipping my mind. The Only Something of Truth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but anyway, it had stories of people in it, and Gene Roddenberry was one of the people. And it basically said that he had been sitting in on channeling sessions
Okay.
with a woman. I believe her name was Tuella, Tuella, and she was channeling extraterrestrials, and that is where he got. Oh, these extraterrestrials said to this woman that they were in Earth's vicinity on a ship. It was a huge ship, and there were different races of beings on it,
Mm-hmm.
and they were, traversing the universe. And that is where it is thought that he got the idea for Star Trek.
I wouldn't doubt it, because to come up with something that huge, that big, that groundbreaking, that the fact, right? Like I was born in 65. It's my birthday actually on Sunday. So I grew, like I say, I grew up with Star Trek. And then even then, I mean, it didn't last that long, considering the phenomena it is now. Oh my God, it's and I always find this so fascinating. I have to agree with you. Coincidences, I don't believe in coincidences. Same thing when you get a message. Yes, I always say to people, if they want to hear their guides or their angels, right? They're there for your highest good and in love. They're not going to want to scare you. So I usually say to people, you can usually tell, if it's your guides or not. Most people I've met don't hear this booming, different voice than their own. Some people may have called it the voice of reason, whatever it is. I use this example. You're laying,
Intuition.
yeah, well, no, but what I say is, for people that don't realize they've been hearing this, you're laying in bed, you've got a massive problem, you can't go to sleep, you've been trying to think of solutions over and over and over and over, and you're tossing and turning. All of a sudden, a stroke of genius comes out of nowhere. The solution comes. You follow the solution, and everything is okay. We've all had a situation like that. I always say that that could be your higher self, or more than likely it's your guides and your angels. And not everybody has that experience, but for people who say, when am I going to hear my guides, when am I going to hear what their names are or how to communicate, I really believe that part of that is that inner voice. What's your experience with that?
Mine are a little more overt.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can, pick up actually sentences from them. But I tell people what you do. I mean, they try to reach you in many ways,
I agree.
and they can try by symbols. They can speak through other people. I've received
Absolutely.
messages through people where I had something on my mind and it was huge and I didn't want to talk about it, and it was like a whole dialogue that came out of the person that I
Absolutely.
was with that I knew was from them. So they have all kinds
I
of
didn't even
ways
get
of
into all
meeting
those.
you.
You're darn right. Like the signs, listening to a
It's
song.
just
You
amazing. I mean, they will find a way, but you know what? It gets easier if, like you're out there, you're talking about this, when people know about it, it gets easier because they know to stop and listen. It gets easier for them to receive the messages
absolutely.
because they are aware that messages can come
Mhm.
from anywhere and from anybody. So you don't have to be someone who is receiving it telepathically.
I agree.
You can receive it uh, from, like I said, a person that's just talking to you, or oh my goodness, I've had, for example,
Yeah.
when I was pregnant with my daughter,
Mhm.
I was just miserable,
Oh,
and I had gone to the hospital,
yeah.
and I was standing there waiting to be picked up. I had
Yeah.
visited, and I was standing there, and I swear this man came by, and he was moving very quickly, and he came by, and he says, "Don't worry, she's coming fast. It'll be fine." And he kept going. He said it as he passed me, and just kept going.
Wow.
And I looked after him and I laughed, and then later I thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, spirit can manifest themselves. They can
Absolutely.
take on forms of people. I've had people tell me, it was just too weird. Why would he do that?
Mm-hmm.
Why would he do that? How did he know? So, I mean, you just have to be open
Yeah.
to the idea that they're trying to reach you in so many ways. They may even manifest, you know. Um, so,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, that's what I think.
There's a strange video I've seen. No, I wasn't going to get into the long of it because you're right. We could have a whole show just about looking for signs and symbols and numbers and songs and on and on and on. Like a message like that from a stranger. Or this is where we go with the stranger. Maybe you've seen this video. You probably have in your research. It was taken off of a Chinese traffic camera. Looks like it's in the middle of the night. And there's a little old man going crossing on his bicycle. All of a sudden, this vehicle comes out of nowhere. As it's supposed to hit the man, you see this blur and flash, and you see the man over on the other side of the road. The man that thought he hit this gentleman gets
Mm,
screeches to a halt. You can't hear it, you can see it. He's looking
mm,
everywhere like I just killed somebody. And the person or whatever this was that saved them had a dark hoodie on, dark jeans, their hands were glowing. They had their head down like this. They stuck their hands in their pocket and they very quickly just walked off camera. Have you seen that one?
I have seen it. I
What,
have seen it.
who or what was that? I'm getting
That
goosebumps
was
telling
amazing.
you.
Oh, I love that. I love that video. And yeah, who was that? It was their angel. It was
Was
it
it
was someone. It was someone. Sorry.
was it benevolent ET too? Who?
Right. Right. We
Mm-hmm,
don't really know who it was, but we know it was someone and that we're being watched,
mm-hmm.
and yeah, I can see it very clearly. I've seen it more than once,
Oh, me
that
too.
one.
I've watched it so many times. It's just such a beautiful thing to watch. It really is. So the other thing I was going to add too, I really do believe and I wasn't looking for this, it kind of came into my path quite a few years ago. I believe that we actually had a civilization, if you will, back around the Egyptian times, because we really don't know what's in the depths of the pyramids. Never mind that there's the Black Sea. That is this black scar you can see if you're high enough over the earth. There's radiation still coming from there. Never mind the
Mhm.
hieroglyphics that we're seeing. I mean, we could go on and on. So did you run
Mhm.
across that the moon had anything connected at all, or did you run across anything like that?
So I don't have I don't have anything more than right now. It more than the idea that we may be connected ancient astronaut wise, because there is a story that Adam, or Adapa, in the Sumerian teachings was his name, may have actually been. I've read that he was preaching the moon. It was like a prophet of the moon,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea is that maybe humans were originally created on the moon
Mm-hmm.
by the Sumerians. That may have been. Some people say it's maybe Nibiru. I don't think it was Nibiru,
Okay.
Planet X. But they're saying the story is that at the very least it is owned by the Anunnaki, and that perhaps humankind was first created there and then
Mm-hmm.
placed here as a slave race to mine for
Yeah.
gold.
Yeah.
So that is a theory,
Mm-hmm.
and that's my closest connection, to maybe an extraterrestrial civilization. Again, unless again, when you know, beings came from the moon and maybe came down here and started an advanced civilization. I don't know. Those are my theories, and I'm working on them. But we just don't know what concretely what the connection is. But also, we have had civilizations here. It looks like,
You're reading my mind.
begin, begin and end, begin and end. And could they? I mean, Atlantis is one of them. I've done some work on on Atlantis.
Mhm.
And according to the Sun Gate, the
Notes. I've
archway
written
I
all
talked
this.
about.
I've written all this before you
Oh
said
my
it. You and I
God.
are like, I think, same
Wow.
tonight. Go ahead. Keep
That's
going. This is amazing.
amazing. Yeah. So the idea is that, the thought is that Atlantis may have been destroyed
Mhm.
by the moon coming in.
Oh, I had not heard.
That it would have worked out around the same time frame that the Sun Gate said that the moon came in. If that story is true, it's around the same time Atlantis was destroyed. And could that possibly have been the cause of that ancient civilization
Right.
being destroyed? Now, when you think of Atlantis, people don't know this, but Atlantis wasn't just one city.
Mhm.
Atlantis had uh, outskirts. It had a number of cities attached to it,
Mhm.
attached that were part of the kingdom. Um, and so there's a chance that there were different areas right around Atlantis as well that were technologically advanced, having been a part of the main kingdom that were destroyed. So it seems like maybe there were several different kingdoms that were laid down. I'm trying to say that we may have had many ancient cities that were technologically advanced
Okay.
under the umbrella of Atlantis that were destroyed when the moon came in.
I gotcha.
That could have been a thing.
What about the Mayans? Anything connected to the Mayans too, or mostly Atlantis?
Mostly Atlantis. Haven't found anything with the Mayans yet,
Okay.
except, well, the fact that, so as far as Atlantis goes, they're saying there's a story that, well, there are legends around the world where
Mhm.
people say that they are descendants of Atlantis. That when that destruction came in, and maybe it was the moon again, when that destruction came in, that some people were able to get out. It
Mhm.
said that some people went inside Earth,
Mhm.
and that some people were able to get out, and that some people may have been off city because they were seafaring people, and that it's thought that maybe they were reaching other areas for bartering. So the Mayans are thought to maybe have been connected to the Atlanteans, and that maybe they are descendants from that civilization.
I love it. We've only got a little bit. I really hope you would come back again, Constance, because I've been looking so forward to this conversation with you, and I knew we're going to barely scratch the surface. I hope you'll be okay with
Yeah,
that because you've got a
of
few more minutes.
course.
No, okay, so you have quite a bit about some of the moon missions. Or is there something else you'd like to cover with the book before? Because we're going to be out of time before we know it. I know that.
So, getting back to whether or not we're being watched from the moon,
Hmm.
I find it very interesting that when I look at the NASA missions, each one of those missions saw UFOs or strange lights on the way to the moon, which tells me that whomever is up there are
Hmm.
watching. They're watching our development, and they're trying to see, if how close we're going to get, and we got there.
Hmm.
And I mean, these are not fabricated stories, they're documented.
Hmm.
The astronauts talked about them, it's been written about. There were UFOs following those missions. How else would they have known? And
Hmm.
why are they watching us? Are they connected to us all the way to ancient times? Up
Hmm.
until now, have they been with us? Were they the gods?
That's what I've always wondered. Were they the gods? Like, because, right? Well, how would you maybe have described that back so many years? And we're hearing stories of these type of things throughout all the different countries, if you will, throughout history, right? Like it may not use the same terminology, but very similar experiences, right?
Right. And are they watching us because we are their children? Of course, you've got the negative theories that we're the slave race and that they're here because they own us, they own the planet, we're still working for them. But on the other hand, we have the benevolent beings who are obviously, trying to help us. That whole story with the Anunnaki is that, one of the gods wanted us to be free. So if that is a true story, a true account, then we have benevolent beings watching us too. Some people get mad at me when I say that. I've had one host he didn't like it. He didn't like it, because he
I
did bring
believe
up
that.
all of the negative things. There are negative things going on out there, but there seems to be several different races of beings
Absolutely.
visiting Earth. Some malevolent, some benevolent,
Mhm,
and we just have to grow and
mhm,
learn and educate people about them so
mhm,
that we can eventually get, better answers,
mhm.
connect the dots, and then move into that Star Trek world that, we dream of being a part of. They talk about first contact.
Mhm.
I believe, no, we haven't had otherworldly beings land on Earth and say, take me to your leader. That's what people imagine when they hear about first contact. That we're all going to know it, we're all going to see it on television. But I believe we've had first contact.
I
People
agree.
talk all the time about channeling extraterrestrials. I know someone who says they saw a vehicle open
Mhm,
and otherworldly beings came out.
mhm.
She didn't say hello. She took off, but I mean, of course, we've had first contact. Now we need to grow. And I just feel that learning about the moon and Mars and
Mhm,
other planetary entities, is our way of eventually moving. We've got to grow.
mhm.
Mankind has to move at some point. We can't just sit here and stay the same forever. I would also like to say that if we think about it, uh, we're not, the universe is vast. There's more than one universe. We're
Absolutely.
not alone, and we are a young race. Could be beings that are eons of years old. Who knows where they are spiritually, scientifically, technologically, to the point where they have the creator capacity.
Mhm,
For what we're calling gods, and God could be beings who themselves grew into that, but it took them eons of time. So of course, there may be those out there watching us. There may be those who are simply using the moon, to watch us, or have had been on Mars. We just need to put the dots together and grow as a race.
we've got a few comments and questions, but one thing I was going to add to that, I agree with everything you're saying. You even look at technology, where it has come in the last, not even almost 100 years, and how quickly, and especially I know with my generation, I believe you're younger than I am, but um, when I was little, like we were lucky to have a black and white TV with two channels to where we are with technology now and everything that we've evolved so quickly. I believe that had to come from somewhere. My friend, never mind, Paul Hillier, who used to be Secretary of Defense for Canada, a sworn affidavit has said the government's been working with extraterrestrials for centuries. Now, well, first it was decades, but I meant to say said decades, not centuries. Sorry. But the other person I was going to mention is Dan Willis. I used to have him on every month, but he's gotten so busy. He used to be an ABC newsman. Have you met him before?
I haven't, but I know who he is. I've
Okay.
seen him too.
Yeah. Okay. So he's a good friend of mine. You'll be familiar then when he talks about May 6, 2002 at the New York Press Club. There was over 20 scientists that met there. There was media from all over the world. This was supposed to be a worldwide news breaking event, and they all testified to their experiences, and I believe had proof that there was over 57 different types of extraterrestrials that had made contact on Earth. Excuse me. And as Dan tells the story, what happened was, yeah, it did make the news, but it was this little 15-second blurb with a some people believe that extraterrestrials exist, like a big joke made out of it. And it's too bad. What an opportunity. Um,
Right.
we did have a couple comments I got to throw in here quickly because I think one of them is really excellent. It's Angel Q Dog. And they had put always being watched, but it was this part. perhaps they are the watchers spoken of in the Bible. And then they put, no, I don't think they are gods. I think they're here to watch us, make sure we don't blow up the planet like when they intervened during the missile silo days of the Cold War. There's that comment. And then Sean G asked about Valiant Thor. I thought about him from the 50s. So I don't know where you want to go. We've still got about probably about 7 minutes. So I don't know where you want to go with all those comments in question.
As far as the watchers go, it was really interesting. There's a story about the astronauts going to on their way to the moon, Apollo 11, and Apollo 13. Apollo 10, as we know, ran into a problem. They got stuck in space, and to make a long story short, they were trying to, figure out what to do. They were doing a dress rehearsal for Apollo 11, and so they got stuck in space, and then they saw a UFO move past the window.
Mm-hmm.
When that UFO moved past the window, the equipment that was not working within the lunar module began to work again. And they were able to complete their mission. And when they returned to Earth, the story is they were told not to talk about it. But it is felt that the UFO, whomever was in it, helped them. And of course, that could have, been like a watcher situation to help them, get out of trouble. The same thing with Apollo 13. This wasn't in the movie, but it is thought that there is a story that they were told by extraterrestrials how to get back. Again, that is a watcher type scenario. There's a story that the Apollo 11 astronauts, once they landed on the moon, saw spacecraft sitting on the edge of a crater. And even though we've only heard the negative part of it, the astronauts were scared. They were on a secret medical channel. They said that we're being watched. It was overheard by other people on the radios, and they had picked up the conversation. But one thing that we haven't heard is Maurice Chatelain wrote a book, and he was working for NASA at the time, and he said it appeared to them that they were waiting to see if they were okay. He said once they landed, once they stepped down, he said those ships left. In his books, he says the ships left, and it was as if they were watching to see if they were okay.
Wow.
So, right. So that goes along with the whole watcher, scenario. Maybe there are some watching us to make sure we don't blow ourselves up or hurt ourselves, or maybe they wanted to see the mission succeed so that eventually we can grow into that universal community.
They're all
Valiant.
asking about Valiant Thor in the
Yeah.
chat. They're going, please speak of Valiant Thor. You know what? I realized we started a little bit
See,
late. So.
I love the Valiant Thor story. I believe he existed.
I do too.
Some people say he's still here. Some that he went back and he disappeared. I just know he was there to give information and kind of checking around on things. And I believe he was real. I believe he was a real spaceman who came to Earth. And we're very lucky to have had him. More than that, I don't know all of his dealings and interactings, but I do believe he was real. Sorry, guys, I don't know anymore.
Well, I've seen now. Again, are they real pictures? Who knows? I've seen some pictures because
I've seen him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I knew you would with you being a researcher and the amount of research you've done. Wasn't there was 3 that supposedly were from Venus or Venus, and
right.
Mm-hmm. They looked very annoyed.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I wonder about Venus. I've heard more than once about Venus being inhabited. One of the contactees said that he had visited Venus. I don't know if his story has been debunked. Some of them have been debunked. But I tell you, I wonder sometimes if we're being told the truth about all of the planetary bodies out there, or is there information being kept from us? Or are some of these beings that are associated with Venus, are they coming in from a different dimension? Because each of the planetary bodies, including Earth, we have different dimensions,
Absolutely.
Around us. And could that be a different dimension of Venus? Because you can't live on Venus, they're
Mhm.
saying. But yeah, Venus really, I have a big interest in finding out the truth, more information about that idea.
Mhm. No, I agree with you, and there's so much to know, like I said, and those were just a few points from your book, like, and I can tell from talking to you from the minute I talk to you, you're a fantastic researcher, and you do your homework, and then to share some of it, because even a lot of these things I knew about, but there's a few things you mentioned that I hadn't heard the whole story from what your research has shown you. So I think this is phenomenal, and I believe it is the kind of conversations that we need to keep having. Mind you, I'm going to be really honest with you. I often wondered why the government kept hiding this from us. Like, why are you hiding this? But you know what it is? I don't think everybody's open-minded or ready for it. I thought the Earth would be, but even over the last couple of years, what I'm seeing that, I don't know. I don't think Earth is ready for, if you will, first contact. I hate that term, but what do you think? Do you think they're ready, or do you think humanity has a way to go yet?
I don't think we're ever going to reach a point where every single person is going to be ready.
Hmm.
All right. So, I mean, I think we're ready as we're
Hmm.
going to be. I think we can't get ready until I'm completely ready until we are telling people more concrete evidence about the evidence out there. And I think that feeding it a little at a time, would help instead of just trying to
Agreed.
sweep it under the rug. I'm astounded when I watch the news because you and I have our hands in this stuff all the time, and we've seen the pictures that are coming off of Mars. We've seen the pictures on Google Earth, of the
Yeah.
moon, and some of the pictures before they were doctored,
Yeah.
and there are UFOs everywhere. Okay, I mean, I have friends that see them. I go to bed. I haven't seen them. I'm going to start looking. I'm going to get my some night
Mhm.
goggles or whatever they're called. But anyway, I've seen one once when I was a child, but that was another story. But I'm trying to say they're everywhere and they're not on the mainstream news, and it
Mhm.
just boggles my mind. They don't put crop circles on the mainstream news. How
I
can they not? There should be town hall meetings all over the world about those things. Somebody was writing the other day, oh, they've been debunked. They were debunked, but let's see, the debunkers were debunked.
Yeah.
And I just don't. I think we can't get ready until you're honest with people. But
True.
I think we're just going to have to pull that band-aid off.
I agree. I knew that the full disclosure that was supposed to come June 25th, we weren't going to get much, and we didn't. CIA said they declassified everything about the moon, aliens, UFOs, or UAPs. It was all redacted. They said they had no video, no footage, no photos or anything. And it's like, come on. I mean, you can't go anywhere. You can just type in UFOs or UAPs or aliens and look up images. There's, oh God, gajillions almost of them. And every single day we seem to be seeing more and more, like you've said.
Right. There was the government was advised by the Brookings Institute. I think it was the 50s or 60s to if they found anything not to tell us
Hmm.
because they didn't think we were ready. And around that same period, there was. Have you ever heard of War of the Worlds?
Oh, yeah.
War of the World. Okay, so the people during that time were, from that radio broadcast, were going crazy.
Hmm.
So maybe they still think that, people are at that point that
Hmm.
they're going to be, throwing themselves off of a house to hear such things. And I have to say, Hollywood isn't helping,
I
you
agree.
know?
I agree. I agree
Oh
totally.
my God.
I
You
wanted to
know, it's-
add
the,
quickly.
hmm?
Have you heard of the work of Mike Cleland? Because when you were asking, we were talking about a UFO and that you'd never seen him pull out your goggles or your night vision goggles and what have you. Have you heard of Mike Cleland?
It doesn't ring a bell, no.
Okay, he has a theory. I'll see after the show. I'll try and remember to send you some stuff. Not a lot, but there's a really cool talk he does that he has found that people that start seeing a lot of owls or noticing them, or it's either that or they'll be saying, I want to see a UFO. I've never seen a UFO, and start searching the skies, that they go hand in hand together. And I'm not doing it justice. Like when you hear this gentleman speaking about it, he's written many books. It's pretty compelling with a lot of the stories he shares. I listened to a couple conference topics that he, or I guess presentations that he did, and he's really interesting. He's a great speaker. I'll have to send it to you.
Oh, please do. Please
Yeah.
do. Yeah, I did see a UFO when I was a child,
Mhm.
and I didn't realize until recently. Even though
Wow.
I thought about this thing on and off, here and there over the years, I was on my way. It was dark. I was riding with my mother in Alexandria, Virginia,
Mhm.
going to a pharmacy at Mount Vernon Avenue for you that live there. And we could look. I could look over into, I think it was Arlandria, and I saw this thing in the sky. I thought it was kind of some kind of airplane, or something.
Mhm.
It was not a blimp, people. I knew blimps, and they usually didn't have lights. This thing had lights that were going around. There were different lights, and it was a strip
Wow.
of them. And even though it was dark, I could tell this thing had a circular shape. And I remember I didn't say anything to my mother because she was a nervous driver. She never wanted me to talk.
Yeah.
And I just remember thinking, oh, I wonder if that's one of those things.
What are those things?
Right. So obviously, I remember that thought, and I remember I must have had heard of the UFO.
Sure.
My parents didn't follow such things, so how would I have known of those things? I've counted back now; it's about 9, and I had dismissed it. I had dismissed this because I just thought it was some sort of weird airplane.
Yep.
Right? Was my final thought, and let it go.
Mhm.
It was fascinating, though. But I was doing my research not very long ago, and then somebody was saying they had seen this thing hovering, and I thought, oh well, airplanes don't hover. And then I went, oh, oh, and I would give myself headaches trying to figure out what it was that I saw, because I can't believe that I saw something so vivid
Mhm.
at that age, where I grew up.
Mhm.
And I called my brother right away and told him uh, my experience, and then he gave me his experience. So,
Wow.
but yeah, very interesting stuff, huh?
Very.
And
I want to read the comments here because we're out of time. Please come back because everybody loved you. Wait till you hear the comments. So Angel Q Dog, and all my glasses on, said, thank you so much, Constance. It has been
uh,
a pleasure listening to you speak on this subject. Also,
uh,
thank you, Lorilei, for a wonderfully enlightening 2 hours, and Zach Mann, who's a regular supporter of our network and our shows. And thank you, everybody that showed up tonight. He said, loved the show. Thank you,
uh,
Constance, for joining us
thank you.
this evening. He said, have a good night, everybody. Much love to you all. But before we
Uh,
go, where do people buy all your fantastic books? How do they get a hold of you? Where do they find you?
Okay, so the books are on Amazon, like everything is. And if you can't find the Moon Mystery book there, you can go to Adventures Unlimited Press. They have it. Or you can Google any of the bookstores. You can find the Moon Mysteries book easily, and the other ones too on Amazon.
Mhm.
I am on Twitter, Constance Victoria Briggs. I am on Facebook, Cosmic Mysteries, Constance Victoria Briggs, and another page that's becoming popular called Moon Mysteries. If you go on Facebook, Moon Mysteries, I put up videos and all kinds of tidbits and weird things going on with the moon. So, and if you need to email me, you can reach me through my website. Sorry, ConstanceVictoriaBriggs.com.
I
Yes, yeah.
love it. Thank you so much. I want to tell everybody, if you ever want to get a hold of me, you can reach out to me on Facebook.com/The Angel Rock. If you ever want to book a psychic medium reading, also do Akashic Records practitioner type things, balance chakras, check your aura, all that's involved. It's really helps with a lot of things, actually. I also have 2 groups on Facebook. I have Paranormal University for all things paranormal. And then I have the Angel Rocker Tribe for all things esoteric, spirituality-wise, energy-wise, power of the mind, angels, a lot of things we talked about tonight. And I want to thank you guys all for being here, wherever you may be, or if you're listening to this on the replay. I want to thank Constance. You're amazing. I'm going to be bugging you to come back on here. I just
Thank
love talking
you.
to you.
Thank you for having me. It's been so much fun.
I
And
love
thank you, audience.
They loved you too, Constance. I knew they would. So, like I said, I'm going to be bugging you to have you. There was so much more to talk about.
Right.
Could
There
talk.
really is. There really is. It's a lot.
Absolutely. And again, thank you, everybody. And we're still live. I may have to text Joe because we started a little bit late. I realize that's usually I end about 5 minutes before the hour. We're still live, but I want to thank you for being here. I knew we were going to have a great conversation tonight. I knew it.
It was great. Yeah. And I like the conversation style as opposed